The old piano sat in the corner of Grandma Lou's living room, its dark wood polished to a shine that caught the afternoon light. Little May sat cross-legged on the carpet, coloring in her picture book, her dark hair falling across her face as she concentrated. She was small for her age, just 3.5 years old, with bright eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Grandma Lou moved slowly to the piano bench and sat down with a soft groan. Her fingers, though wrinkled with age, still moved with grace as she lifted the cover off the keys. "What are you going to play, Grandma?" May's father asked from the kitchen doorway where he was drying a plate. "Oh, just an old favorite," Grandma Lou replied with a smile. Her fingers began to dance across the keys, playing the familiar opening notes of Fur Elise. May's head lifted at the sound. She put down her crayon and turned toward her grandmother. Something about the music seemed to pull her in, like it was speaking directly to her. No one noticed at first as she got up and walked over to the piano, her small feet silent on the carpet. The melody filled the room, rising and falling like waves. Grandma Lou played with her eyes half closed, lost in memories. She didn't notice when May climbed onto the bench beside her until she felt the slight shift in weight. "You want to hear the music up close?" Grandma Lou asked with a smile, continuing to play. May didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on her grandmother's hands, watching every movement with unusual focus for a child so young. When Grandma Lou finished the piece, she patted May's head and started to rise. "Play again," May said, her voice soft but sure. "Later, little one. My old hands need a rest now." "Please, Grandma. Just the beginning." Something in the child's tone made Grandma Lou sit back down. She played the opening sequence again. Just the first few measures that everyone knows. Then she stopped and looked down at her granddaughter. "Now it's time for tea," she said. But May didn't move. Instead, she lifted her tiny hands to the keys. Her fingers hovered for just a moment, and then she began to play. The first notes of Fur Elise filled the room again, but this time they came from May's small fingers. Note for note, exactly as her grandmother had played it. The plate May's father was holding slipped from his hands and clattered to the floor. It didn't break, but nobody noticed anyway. All eyes were on May. "What in the world?" May's mother whispered, appearing in the doorway beside her husband. Grandma Lou's mouth hung open in shock. She watched as May's fingers found each key with perfect precision, playing the opening sequence flawlessly. The child's feet dangled far above the pedals, yet somehow the music sounded complete. When May finished the part she had heard, she looked up at her grandmother with a smile. "Like that, Grandma?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then Grandma Lou found her voice. "Yes, darling. Just like that. How did you do that?" May shrugged, the way children do when asked to explain something that seems obvious to them. "I listened to the song. It's pretty." May's father crossed the room in 3 quick strides. "Has she been practicing when we're not looking?" he asked his mother. Grandma Lou shook her head. "Never, I would have known. She's never touched this piano before today." "Play more, Grandma," May said, tugging at her grandmother's sleeve. "Show me the rest." Still stunned, Grandma Lou played the next section of Fur Elise, going slowly and watching May's face. The child's eyes never left her grandmother's hands, absorbing every movement, every note. When Grandma Lou stopped, May immediately placed her own hands on the keys and repeated what she had just heard. Not perfectly this time. She stumbled on a couple of the more complex transitions, but still with remarkable accuracy for someone who had never had a piano lesson. "This isn't normal," May's mother whispered to her husband. "Children don't just do this." "My teacher at the conservatory used to talk about natural talents," Grandma Lou said, her voice filled with wonder. "Children who can play by ear without being taught. But in 40 years of teaching, I never met one myself." May, unaware of the adult's amazement, continued to press keys, trying to find the notes she remembered. "Show me again, Grandma," she said when she got stuck. As the afternoon wore on, they tested May further. Grandma Lou played simple nursery tunes, and May copied them after just 1 or 2 hearings. She played a Mozart piece she had learned as a young girl, and though May couldn't replicate it entirely, she captured the main melody with surprising accuracy. "We need to record this," May's father said finally, pulling out his phone. "No one's going to believe us otherwise." They asked May to play Fur Elise again, and she did, getting a little further than before, though still only the opening section. Her father recorded the whole thing, his hand shaking slightly as he held the phone. That evening, after May had gone to bed, the adults sat in the kitchen, talking in low voices about what had happened. "What do we do now?" May's mother asked, cradling a cup of tea in her hands. "I had a student once, very talented, who studied with Dr. Sorokin at the conservatory," Grandma Liu said thoughtfully. "He's one of the best teachers in the city. Maybe I should call him, see if he would watch the video." "Isn't May too young for formal lessons?" May's father asked, worry creasing his brow. "She's only 3.5. "Normally, yes," Grandma Liu agreed. "But what we saw today? That's not normal either." May's mother looked torn. "I don't want to push her into anything. She should have a regular childhood." "Of course," Grandma Liu said gently, "but ignoring a gift like this, that would be a shame too." In the end, they decided to send the video to Dr. Sorokin just to get his opinion. Grandma Liu wrote a careful email explaining the circumstances and attached the video file. None of them expected a response so quickly. The next morning there was already a reply in Grandma Liu's inbox. "He wants to meet May," she told the others, looking up from her tablet with wide eyes. "He says he's never seen such natural talent in such a young child." "What exactly does that mean?" May's mother asked, a protective edge in her voice. "It doesn't have to mean anything yet," May's father said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're just gathering information." Over breakfast, they watched May as she ate her cereal, swinging her legs under the table and chattering about a butterfly she had seen in the garden. She seemed so ordinary in every other way. "May, do you remember the music you played yesterday?" her father asked casually. May nodded, her mouth full of cereal. "Would you like to learn to play more songs on the piano?" The little girl's eyes lit up and she nodded eagerly, milk dribbling down her chin. "She loves it," Grandma Liu said softly. "You can see it in her face when she plays." They arranged to meet Dr. Sorokin the following weekend. All week, May asked to sit at the piano with her grandmother, absorbing more of Fur Elise and trying out other simple tunes. No one pushed her. They just let her explore at her own pace. But it was clear that she was drawn to the instrument in a way that seemed almost magical. The day of the meeting came, and they dressed May in her favorite yellow dress. She didn't understand why they were going to a big building with long hallways and many doors, but she held her grandmother's hand and walked along happily. Dr. Sorokin was a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He bent down to May's level when they entered his studio. "Hello, May," he said gently. "Your grandma tells me you like to play the piano." May nodded, suddenly shy. "Would you play something for me today?" He led her to a grand piano, much larger and shinier than Grandma Liu's old upright. May looked at it with wide eyes, then at her grandmother for reassurance. "It's just like mine, only bigger," Grandma Liu encouraged her. "The keys work the same way." Dr. Sorokin helped May onto the bench, adjusting it so she could reach the keys comfortably. Her feet still dangled far above the floor. "Play what you know," he said simply, and stepped back. May placed her small hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play Fur Elise. In the excellent acoustics of the studio, the notes rang out clear and true. She played all she had learned so far, which was now about half of the main theme. When she finished, Dr. Sorokin didn't speak immediately. He walked slowly around the piano, looking at May with an expression of wonder. "How long has she been playing?" he asked finally, though he already knew the answer from the email. "Just this past week," May's father confirmed. Before that, she'd never touched a piano. Dr. Sorokin nodded slowly. "In 30 years of teaching, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 children with this level of natural ability, but never one so young." "What does it mean?" May's mother asked, the question that had been on all their minds. "It means," Dr. Sorokin said, looking at May with a gentle smile, "that she has a rare gift, one that deserves to be nurtured carefully." May, unaware of the significance of the moment, was already turning back to the piano, her fingers finding the keys again, playing a simple melody she had made up herself. As the adults talked quietly about possibilities and plans, May continued to play, lost in the world of sound she was creating. In that moment, no one could have guessed that in less than a year, those same tiny hands would bring an entire concert hall to its feet, or that the name of a 4-year-old child would soon be known to music lovers around the world. Life changed quickly for May and her family after that first meeting with Dr. Sorokin. The following week, they returned to the conservatory for May's first real piano lesson. Dr. Sorokin had cleared his Thursday afternoon schedule to work with her, something he'd never done for a child so young. "I usually don't take students under 6, he explained to May's parents as the little girl explored the grand piano in his studio. "But your daughter is different." May's mother still looked worried. "We don't want to push her too hard. She's only a baby, really." Dr. Sorokin nodded. "I understand completely. We'll move at her pace, not mine. If she ever seems tired or loses interest, we stop immediately." They watched as May pressed the keys gently one by one, listening to each note with a look of pure concentration on her face. "How long do you think she can focus?" Dr. Sorokin asked. "Most children her age can barely sit still for 10 minutes. May's father smiled. "You'd be surprised. When she's interested in something, she can sit with it for an hour or more. She once built a tower of blocks taller than herself. Took her forever, but she wouldn't stop until it was done. The first lesson was meant to be just 30 minutes, but it stretched to nearly an hour because May simply didn't want to stop." Dr. Sorokin started with the basics, teaching her the names of the notes, showing her how to position her tiny hands properly on the keys. May soaked it all up like a sponge, asking questions and trying everything immediately. "Can I play Fur Elise now?" she asked when he tried to end the lesson. "We'll work on it more next time," Dr. Sorokin promised. "But first I want to give you some exercises to help your fingers get stronger." To everyone's surprise, May didn't pout or argue. She nodded seriously, as if she understood the importance of building a proper foundation. On the drive home, May fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted but happy. "I think this is right for her," her father said quietly, glancing at his sleeping daughter in the rearview mirror. "Did you see her face when she was playing? I've never seen her so alive." May's mother reached back to smooth the child's hair. "I just don't want her to miss out on being a kid." "She won't," he promised. "Piano will be part of her childhood, not all of it." They set up a schedule of lessons twice a week. Dr. Sorokin also loaned them a keyboard to keep at home, since Grandma Liu lived across town, and they couldn't go there every day for May to practice. It wasn't as good as a real piano, but it would do for now. What happened in the weeks that followed amazed everyone who witnessed it. May practiced every day, not because her parents made her, but because she wanted to. She'd wake up early in the morning and head straight to the keyboard before breakfast. Her mother often found her still in her pajamas, playing the exercises Dr. Sorokin had taught her. "Slow down, May," her mother would say. "The music isn't going anywhere." But May would just smile and keep playing. "I like how it sounds, Mama. Listen to this part." Most surprising of all was how quickly she learned. Dr. Sorokin had prepared a careful, gradual teaching plan that would normally take months to work through. May completed it in weeks. Her small hands grew stronger, more precise. Her ability to memorize pieces after hearing them just a few times left her teacher speechless. "It's not just that she can copy what she hears," he explained to May's parents during their monthly check-in. "Plenty of talented children can do that. It's that she understands the music. She feels it. When she plays, she's not just hitting the right keys, she's telling a story." By the time May had been taking lessons for 2 months, she could play the first movement of Fur Elise from beginning to end. Her feet still couldn't reach the pedals, so Dr. Sorokin would sometimes sit beside her and operate them while she played. It was an unusual sight. The tall, dignified professor and the tiny girl, working together to create something beautiful. "We should record her playing the whole piece," Grandma Liu suggested during a Sunday visit. "I want to show my old colleagues what my granddaughter can do." They set up a phone on a tripod in Dr. Sorokin's studio. May wore her favorite blue dress with tiny white flowers, and someone had tied a ribbon in her hair. She didn't seem nervous at all about being recorded. When Dr. Sorokin gave her the signal to start, she took a deep breath, placed her hands on the keys, and began to play. What happened next was unexpected. May had played Fur Elise many times in lessons, always well. But this time was different. Perhaps it was because her grandmother was watching, or perhaps something inside her had just clicked into place. Whatever the reason, she played with a depth of feeling that left everyone in the room with goosebumps. The dynamics, the soft and loud parts, flowed naturally. She lingered on certain notes, giving them space to breathe. When she reached the faster middle section, her tiny fingers flew across the keys with surprising strength and accuracy. It wasn't just technically impressive. It was musical in a way that children her age simply weren't supposed to be capable of. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Grandma Liu began to cry. I've never heard a child play like that, she whispered. Never. The video was originally meant just for family and friends, but Grandma Liu couldn't resist sharing it with her old network of music teachers. They shared it with their colleagues, who shared it with their students. Within days, the video had spread far beyond their small circle. One evening, about a week after they'd recorded the video, May's father's phone began buzzing with notifications. Email after email, message after message, all about May. The video has over 50,000 views, he told his wife in disbelief. How is that even possible? They sat together on the couch, scrolling through comments from people around the world. Unbelievable talent. Is this real? How old is this child? I've been playing piano for 20 years and can't do what she does. Someone get this girl on stage. May's mother looked worried again. What does this mean? I don't want her to become some kind of circus act. It doesn't have to mean anything, her husband reassured her. We still control what happens next. But the video continued to spread. A local news station called, asking to do a story about May. A piano manufacturer reached out, offering to donate a baby grand piano to the family. And then, most surprising of all, came an email from the organizers of the International Young Musicians Festival. Dr. Sorokin called them as soon as he heard. Do you know what this is? He asked, his voice tight with excitement. This is one of the most prestigious competitions in the world for young musicians. They never accept children under 7 in the under 10 category. But they're making an exception for May. A competition? May's mother repeated. She's not even 4 years old yet. Wouldn't she be competing against much older children? Yes, but Dr. Sorokin hesitated. I wouldn't suggest this if I didn't think she was ready. May has something special, something rare. This could open doors for her that most musicians work their whole lives to reach. May's 4th birthday came and went while they debated what to do. They threw her a party with balloons and cake, invited her friends from playgroup, and tried to give her a normal day. But even then, she slipped away at one point and was found in the living room, playing Happy Birthday on her keyboard with improvised variations that made the adults exchange meaningful glances. In the end, they decided to let May enter the competition. It would be held in Vienna, the home of Beethoven and Mozart, a city steeped in musical history. The thought of taking their tiny daughter halfway across the world to perform on such a big stage terrified them. But the joy she found in music made the risk seem worthwhile. When they told her about it, May's reaction was typically understated. Will there be a big piano? She asked. Yes, a very big, very beautiful piano, her father told her. May nodded, satisfied. I'll play Fur Elise for everyone, she decided. It's my best song. The months leading up to the competition were a whirlwind. May continued her lessons with Dr. Sorokin, now 3 times a week. They worked not just on Fur Elise, but on perfecting every nuance, every transition. He taught her how to bow, how to walk onto a stage, how to adjust the bench before playing. Through it all, May remained remarkably unfazed. While her parents lay awake at night worrying about what they had gotten their daughter into, May slept soundly, often humming Beethoven's melodies in her dreams. As their departure date approached, the family's story caught the attention of more media. A documentary filmmaker asked to follow May's journey to Vienna. Music critics wrote articles debating whether a child so young should be competing at such a high level. Child psychologists weighed in, some supportive, others concerned. The night before they were set to leave, May's father couldn't sleep. He got up to check on his daughter and found her sitting at her keyboard in the dark, not playing, just resting her small hands on the keys. Hey, Pumpkin, he said softly. It's very late. Are you okay? May looked up at him, her face serious in the moonlight coming through the window. I'm listening to the piano, Baba, she said. He sat down beside her. Listening? But you're not playing anything. I can hear it in my head, she explained, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The song tells me stories. What kind of stories? He asked. May thought for a moment. Happy ones, sad ones, all kinds mixed together. She pressed one key very softly and the note hung in the air between them. I want to tell Beethoven's story the best I can. Her father felt tears spring to his eyes. All the worries, all the doubts about whether they were doing the right thing seemed to fall away in that moment. You will, sweetheart, he whispered, pulling her into a hug. You already do. The next morning they boarded a plane to Vienna, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of a little girl who could barely pronounce the name of the city where she would soon make musical history. The airplane hummed steadily as it crossed continents. May pressed her face against the small window, watching clouds drift by beneath them. Her mother slept fitfully in the seat beside her, exhausted from the weeks of preparation. Across the aisle, her father and Dr. Sorokin spoke in hushed tones, going over details of what would happen when they landed. "Have you ever been to Vienna?" May's father asked the piano teacher. Dr. Sorokin nodded. "Many years ago as a student. It's a beautiful city, full of music." He glanced at May, who was now drawing circles on the foggy window with her finger. "I never imagined I'd return with such a young prodigy." The word prodigy still made May's father uncomfortable. It set expectations, created pressure. "She's just a little girl who loves piano," he said quietly. "Of course," Dr. Sorokin agreed quickly. "And that's how we'll keep it." Vienna welcomed them with gray skies and a light drizzle. May, who had never traveled outside her home country before, looked around with wide eyes as they drove from the airport to their hotel. "Everything looks different," she said, her nose pressed against the car window. "The buildings are so old." "Some of them have been standing for hundreds of years," Dr. Sorokin told her. "Beethoven walked these streets, you know. He played concerts in halls we can still visit today." May considered this with a serious expression. "Do you think he'll hear me play his song?" The adults exchanged glances, touched by the innocent question. "I think he would be very proud," May's mother said, squeezing her daughter's hand. Their hotel room was small but comfortable, with a view of a quiet side street lined with trees. The competition organizers had arranged for a practice piano to be available in a private room downstairs. After settling in, Dr. Sorokin suggested they go down to check it out. May should get accustomed to it, he explained. Every piano has its own feel, its own voice. The practice room was tucked away in a corner of the hotel, soundproofed and simply furnished. The piano was smaller than the grand piano at the conservatory, but still much larger than the keyboard May used at home. She approached it cautiously, running her small hand along its polished surface. "May I?" she asked Dr. Sorokin. He helped her onto the bench, adjusting it to the right height for her. I placed her hands on the keys and played a few experimental notes. "It's brighter," she said thoughtfully. "Louder than your piano." Dr. Sorokin nodded, pleased with her observation. "Yes, exactly. Each piano has its own character. You'll need to adjust your touch a bit." They practiced for an hour, with May growing more comfortable with the new instrument. By the end of the session, she was playing Fur Elise confidently, adapting to the piano's distinct sound. "That's enough for today," Dr. Sorokin said finally. "We don't want to tire you out before the competition." But as they were leaving the practice room, they encountered another competitor coming in, a boy of about 9, accompanied by a stern-looking woman. The boy stopped when he saw May staring in obvious surprise. "Is she competing too?" he asked his mother in accented English. The woman looked down at May with raised eyebrows. "Surely not in the under-10 division." "Yes, she is," Dr. Sorokin said politely. "May will be performing Beethoven's Fur Elise." The woman's expression shifted to something between amusement and disbelief. "How unusual." She ushered her son into the room without another word. Back in their hotel room, May's mother paced anxiously. "Did you see how they looked at her? Like she's some kind of circus act." "It doesn't matter what they think," her husband said, though he looked troubled too. May earned her place here with her talent, not her age. But as the days passed and more competitors arrived, similar reactions became common. Older children stared and whispered. Parents and teachers exchanged skeptical glances when they saw the tiny girl practicing in the hotel. At the official registration, the organizers had to create a special badge for May since their templates weren't designed for competitors so young. The night before the preliminary round, a local newspaper published an article about the competition, highlighting May as a curiosity. 4-year-old to compete against children twice her age, the headline read. A child psychologist was quoted questioning whether such pressure was healthy for a preschooler. "Perhaps we're rushing childhood in our quest to cultivate prodigies," the expert said. "Children this young need play, not pressure." May's parents read the article with growing dismay. They'd come halfway around the world, but now they wondered if they'd made a terrible mistake. "Maybe we should withdraw," May's mother suggested, her voice breaking. "Take her home, let her just be a little girl." May, who had been sitting quietly with her coloring book, looked up. Are we not doing the music anymore? Her father sat down beside her. We're just worried that it might be too much for you, sweetie. All these people watching, all these big kids competing. It's okay if you want to go home. May thought about this for a long moment, her small face serious. Then she closed her coloring book and slid off her chair. I want to show you something, she said. She walked to the practice piano in the corner of their hotel suite and climbed onto the bench. Without sheet music, without prompting, she began to play. Not Fur Elise this time, but something else, something they'd never heard her play before. It was simpler than Beethoven, a gentle melody that rose and fell like a lullaby. When she finished, she looked back at her stunned parents. I made that up, she explained. It's a song about our home. It's beautiful, May, her mother whispered. When did you create this? In my head on the airplane, May said simply. I wanted to remember home when I was feeling scared. Are you scared now? Her father asked gently. May shook her head. Not when I'm playing. The music makes the scared feelings go away. She looked at them earnestly. I want to play Beethoven's song tomorrow. I practiced very hard. Her parents exchanged a look over her head, a look of wonder, of resignation, of acceptance. They had thought they were guiding May's journey, but perhaps she was guiding theirs. Then you'll play tomorrow, her father said finally. The morning of the preliminary round dawned bright and clear. The competition was being held in a historic concert hall in the heart of Vienna, its ornate interior gleaming with gold leaf and crystal chandeliers. Competitors and their families gathered in a grand waiting room, the air humming with nervous energy. May, dressed in a simple blue dress with her hair tied back in a ribbon, sat quietly between her parents. Around them, older children paced or played handheld games, their anxiety evident. One girl about 8 years old was crying softly while her mother tried to comfort her. A competition official with a clipboard approached them. May Liu, you're scheduled to perform in 30 minutes. You'll be the third performer in your group. Dr. Sorokin, who had been speaking with some colleagues across the room, joined them. How are you feeling, May? He asked, kneeling to her level. My tummy feels funny, she admitted. That's normal, he assured her. Even the greatest pianists get butterflies before they perform. Real butterflies? May asked, her eyes widening. Dr. Sorokin laughed. No, just a feeling like butterflies fluttering inside you. It means you care about doing your best. As the minutes ticked by, May's parents grew increasingly tense. They watched other young performers disappear through the doors to the stage, some returning in tears, others with cautious smiles. Whatever happens in there, May's mother said, squeezing her daughter's hand, we are so proud of you. Just playing here is already amazing. When it was finally time, a stagehand led them to the wings of the stage. May peeked out at the grand piano standing in the spotlight, gleaming under the chandeliers. The auditorium stretched out beyond it, rows and rows of seats filled with shadowy figures. A panel of judges sat at a long table to one side. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. Our next performer in the under-10 division is May Liu, age 4, from China, performing Ludwig van Beethoven's Bagatelle in a minor, commonly known as Fur Elise. A murmur ran through the audience at the mention of her age. That's your cue, the stagehand whispered. Remember to bow before and after, May nodded solemnly. She looked up at her parents one last time. The piano will tell Beethoven's story, she said softly, repeating the words she'd told her father nights ago. Then she stepped out onto the stage, a tiny figure in a spotlight meant for someone twice her size. The audience's murmurs faded into silence as she made her way to the piano. Someone had placed a special cushion on the bench to help her reach the keys properly. May climbed onto the bench, adjusted herself carefully as Dr. Sorokin had taught her, and placed her hands on the keys. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and began to play. The first notes of Fur Elise floated out across the hushed concert hall, clear and precise. In the wings, her parents held their breath, unable to see their daughter's face but watching, her small back straight and poised as she brought Beethoven's centuries-old composition to life once more. The first notes of Fur Elise floated through the concert hall like gentle raindrops on a quiet pond. From the wings, May's parents could see the judges leaning forward slightly, pencils poised over their notepads. In the audience, people who had been shuffling programs or whispering to neighbors fell silent. Drawn in by the unexpected purity of the sound, May felt the coolness of the ivory keys beneath her fingers as she played the familiar opening melody. This piano was bigger than any she had played before. Its sound richer and more powerful. For a moment, she felt very small sitting on the big bench in the spotlight. But then, as always happened when she played, the music took over. She forgot about the judges watching her. Forgot about the hundreds of people in the audience. Forgot even about her parents waiting anxiously in the wings. There was only Beethoven's beautiful melody flowing from her fingers, telling its story of joy and longing. When she reached the middle section, the faster, more difficult part, her tiny hands moved with surprising strength and precision. Notes cascaded like a waterfall, each one clear and distinct. In the third row of the audience, an old man with white hair closed his eyes, a smile of wonder spreading across his face. As May played the final section, returning to the gentle melody of the beginning, something magical happened in the hall. A collective breath seemed to be held, as if no one wanted to break the spell her music had cast. Her last notes hung in the air for a long moment before fading away, then silence. May sat still, hands resting gently on the keys as Dr. Sorokin had taught her. 1 second passed, 2, 3. Suddenly, like a dam breaking, applause erupted throughout the hall. Not the polite, measured applause that had followed other young performers, but something wild and spontaneous. People stood up from their seats. Someone shouted, "Bravo!" from the balcony. May looked up, startled by the noise. She remembered to slide off the bench and bow as she'd practiced, her small head dipping formally toward the audience. This only made them applaud louder. In the wings, May's mother was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. Her father stood frozen, one hand pressed against his mouth. Dr. Sorokin was beaming, nodding his head as if to say, "See, I told you she was special." When May walked off the stage, her mother swept her up in a tight hug. "You were wonderful, my little bird," she whispered. "Did I play okay?" May asked, suddenly sounding like the 4-year-old she was rather than the accomplished musician who had just left the stage. "More than okay," her father said, his voice thick with emotion. "You played beautifully." Dr. Sorokin approached, his face serious despite the joy in his eyes. "The judges were impressed," he said. "I could see it in their faces. But now we must wait for the results. There are still many talented children to perform today." They returned to the waiting area where other competitors and their families sat. The atmosphere had changed subtly. Where before there had been curious or dismissive glances, now there were looks of respect, even awe. The boy they'd met in the practice room days earlier gave May a small wave from across the room. Hours passed as they waited for all performers to finish. May grew tired and dozed off in her mother's lap. Her father paced the room, too anxious to sit still. Dr. Sorokin spoke quietly with other teachers and musicians who stopped by to ask about his young student. Finally, a competition official appeared with a list in hand. Everyone snapped to attention. "We will now announce the finalist who will perform in tomorrow's final round," the woman said, her voice carrying across the hushed room. She began reading names, starting with the oldest division. Parents hugged children who made it through, comforted those who didn't. When she reached the under-10 division, May's parents held their breath. The finalists for the under-10 piano division are as follows. Anton Petrov, a tall boy across the room, pumped his fist in celebration. Hana Takahashi, a girl in a red dress, jumped up and down excitedly. Wait, a serious-looking boy nodded calmly as his father patted his shoulder. And May Liu, Dr. Sorokin, squeezed May's father's arm so hard it almost hurt. May, just waking up from her nap, looked around in confusion. "What happened?" she asked sleepily. Her mother hugged her tightly. "You did it, May! You're going to play again tomorrow in the final round." Back at the hotel that night, reality began to sink in. May wasn't just participating, she was actually competing for first place against children more than twice her age. The local news had picked up the story, and reporters waited in the hotel lobby, hoping to speak with the family of the piano prodigy. Dr. Sorokin helped them slip in through a side entrance to avoid the attention. In their room, he discussed the plan for tomorrow. "The final round is different," he explained. "The judges will be watching even more carefully. Every detail matters, not just the notes, but the feeling, the presentation." May sat on the floor, coloring in her book and seemingly paying no attention to the adult conversation. But then she looked up suddenly. "Will I play Fur Elise again tomorrow?" she asked. "Yes," Dr. Sorokin confirmed. "The same piece." but we want to make it even better. May nodded seriously. I can make it better, she said with the simple confidence of a child. I can tell more of the story. Her parents exchanged glances over her head. In moments like these, they were reminded that despite her extraordinary talent, May was still just 4 years old, a child who thought of music as stories, not as techniques to be mastered. That's right, her father said, sitting down beside her on the floor. Tomorrow you'll tell Beethoven's story one more time, and then no matter what happens, we'll go home and you can go back to playgroup and the park and all the normal things. And I can still play piano, May asked, a hint of worry in her voice. Of course, he assured her quickly, as much as you want. But not for judges or audiences, just for yourself. And for us. May seemed satisfied with this answer and went back to her coloring. That night, while May slept soundly, her parents lay awake talking in whispers. What if she wins tomorrow? Her mother asked. What then? There will be more attention, more pressure, more competitions. Then we say no, her father replied firmly. We set boundaries. May plays because she loves it, not because the world wants a show. And if she doesn't win? Her mother wondered. He was quiet for a moment. Then we remind her that making beautiful music is its own reward. That coming here, playing on that stage, was already a victory. Morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the curtains. The day of the finals was clear and bright, as if Vienna itself was eager for the music to come. May woke up early, full of energy. Today I play again, she announced, bouncing on her parents' bed to wake them. The atmosphere at the concert hall was even more intense than the day before. News of the 4-year-old finalist had spread, and the hall was packed to capacity. People who couldn't get tickets gathered outside, hoping to hear reports of the performances. Backstage, the 4 finalists waited nervously. The older children practiced finger exercises or listened to recordings through headphones. May sat quietly, swinging her legs on a chair too tall for her, humming softly to herself. When an official came to tell her she would perform last, May nodded, as if this made perfect sense. I get to listen to everyone else first, she said happily. The first 3 finalists played brilliantly. Anton's performance was technically perfect, each note precisely where it should be. Hannah played with incredible speed and energy. Li Wei brought a thoughtful maturity to his piece that belied his young age. And then it was May's turn. As she walked onto the stage, the audience hushed. Many had come specifically to see her, this child who had become the talk of the festival. Cameras flashed despite rules against photography during performances. May climbed onto the bench, which had again been prepared with cushions for her. She adjusted her position, took a deep breath, and began to play. From the first notes, it was clear that something was different. Where yesterday's performance had been beautiful and precise, today's was transcendent. May played not just with her hands, but with her whole being. Her face showed every emotion in the music: joy, sadness, playfulness, longing. Her body swayed gently with the rhythm, as if the music was a breeze moving through her. In the judging panel, an elderly woman with steel-gray hair removed her glasses, her hand trembling slightly. A middle-aged man closed his score sheet, no longer needing to check for technical accuracy. They were no longer judges in that moment, but simply people experiencing something extraordinary. When May reached the middle section, her fingers danced across the keys with newfound confidence. The piano seemed to sing under her touch, each note ringing true and clear, and in the final return to the main theme, she played with such tenderness that several people in the audience were seen wiping away tears. The final notes faded away, and May placed her hands in her lap, her head bowed slightly. For a heartbeat, the hall remained silent. Then, like a thunderclap, applause erupted. People leapt to their feet, cheering and clapping. Someone threw a small bouquet of flowers onto the stage. The judges, breaking all protocol, stood along with the audience. May looked out at the sea of applauding people, a shy smile spreading across her face. She slid off the bench and bowed deeply, just as she had practiced. As she walked off stage, the applause continued, following her like a wave. "Did I tell the story better?" she asked her waiting parents, her voice barely audible over the ongoing ovation. Her father knelt down and hugged her tightly. "Oh, May," he whispered. "You told it perfectly." The judges disappeared into a private room after the final performance. In the waiting area, finalists and their families gathered nervously, making polite conversation while tension hung in the air. May, exhausted from the emotional experience of performing, curled up on a cushioned bench with her head in her mother's lap. "No matter what happens now," Dr. Sorokin said quietly, "what May did today was remarkable. I've been teaching for 30 years and I've never heard a child play with such soul." May's father nodded, too overcome with emotion to speak. He kept replaying the performance in his mind. His tiny daughter on that enormous stage, creating something so beautiful that it had brought hardened music critics to tears. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Anton paced the room, unable to sit still. Hannah's mother repeatedly straightened her daughter's already perfect dress. Li Wei sat with his eyes closed, as if meditating. Finally, after what felt like hours, the door opened. A woman in a black suit entered, holding an envelope. Behind her came the panel of judges, their faces deliberately neutral. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience," the woman announced. "The judges have made their decision." The room fell silent. Even the restless children stopped fidgeting. "In fourth place, Bon," the woman began. May's mother gently woke her daughter, who sat up, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "What's happening?" May whispered. "They're announcing the winners," her father explained softly. The woman continued through the results. In third place, Anton Petrov. The tall boy's shoulders slumped slightly, but he stepped forward to accept his bronze medal with dignity. In second place, Li Wei. The serious boy nodded formally as the silver medal was placed around his neck. Only May and Hannah remained. The older girl reached for her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. May stood between her parents, still looking slightly confused from her nap. The head judge, an elderly man with kind eyes and silver hair, stepped forward to make the final announcement himself. "Before I reveal our first-place winner," he said, his deep voice carrying across the room, "I want to say something unusual. Our judging panel has been part of this competition for many years. We have seen extraordinary young musicians from around the world, but today—" He paused, looking down at the small figures of May and Hannah. "Today we witnessed something that transcends ordinary talent. We witnessed music in its purest form." He opened the envelope in his hands, though it was clear he already knew what it contained. "The first-place winner of the under-10 piano division is—" May's parents held their breath. "May Liu." For a moment the room was silent. Then applause broke out. Not just from the officials and judges, but from the other competitors and their families. Even Hannah, who must have been disappointed, clapped her hands, looking at May with what seemed like wonder rather than jealousy. "May," her father whispered, "you won. You got first place." May looked up at him, her face serious. "Does that mean my playing made people happy?" He knelt down beside her, his eyes filling with tears. "Yes, little one. Very, very happy." The head judge approached with a gold medal on a ribbon and a small trophy shaped like a piano. He bent down to place the medal around May's neck. "Young lady," he said gently, "you have an extraordinary gift. Thank you for sharing it with us today." May touched the medal curiously, then looked up at the judge. "Thank you," she said politely, just as her parents had taught her. "Beethoven's music is very pretty." The simple, childlike response made the judge smile. He straightened up and addressed May's parents. "There will be a winner's recital this evening. All first-place winners perform one more time. Will May be able to play?" Her parents looked at each other, concerned about how tired she already seemed. But before they could answer, May spoke up. "I can play again," she said. "I like the big piano on the stage." The winner's recital was held that evening in the same grand hall, but with an even larger audience. News of the 4-year-old prodigy had spread throughout Vienna's music community. Every seat was filled, with people standing at the back and along the sides of the hall. May was scheduled to perform last. As she waited backstage with her parents, a journalist approached them, notebook in hand. "May I ask May a question?" she requested politely after introducing herself. May's father hesitated but nodded. The journalist knelt down to May's level. "May, you're the youngest winner in the history of this competition. How does that feel?" May considered the question seriously. "It feels nice," she said finally. "But I just wanted to play the piano well." The journalist smiled. "And why do you like playing the piano?" May's answer came more quickly this time. "The music feels like colors inside me. When I play, the colors come out and everyone can see them." The journalist looked up at May's parents with raised eyebrows, clearly impressed by the child's response. She has a poetic soul, she said, scribbling in her notebook. Just like her playing. When it was finally time for May's performance, the audience was buzzing with anticipation. People who had only heard about her now craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the child prodigy. May walked onto the stage with more confidence than before, the gold medal gleaming against her blue dress. She climbed onto the bench, positioned her hands, and played Fur Elise one more time. Though she was tired, though she had already given her all in the competition performance, somehow May found new depths in the music. Perhaps it was the freedom of knowing the judging was over. Or perhaps it was simply the pure joy of sharing what she loved. Whatever the reason, her playing that night touched everyone who heard it. When the final note faded away, the audience erupted into the longest standing ovation of the evening. People threw flowers onto the stage, so many that May looked around in confusion at the colorful blooms surrounding the piano. As she took her final bow, the head judge came onto the stage with a large bouquet. "For our youngest winner ever," he announced, handing the flowers to May, who could barely wrap her arms around them. The next morning, May's face was on the front page of Vienna's newspapers. "A star is born," one headline proclaimed. "The Mozart of our time?" asked another. Phone calls and emails flooded in. Concert halls across Europe wanted to book performances. Record labels inquired about recording contracts. A prestigious music school in America offered a full scholarship to be held until May was old enough to attend. In their hotel room, May's parents sat overwhelmed by it all while their daughter played contentedly with a doll on the floor. The gold medal forgotten on a side table. "What do we do now?" her mother asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. "Everyone wants a piece of her." Her father looked at May, so small, so ordinary in her play, yet capable of creating something so extraordinary when she touched a piano. "We protect her," he said firmly. "She plays because she loves it, not because the world demands it." Dr. Sorokin, who had been fielding many of the calls and requests, joined the conversation. "I agree," he said, "but completely shutting out the world isn't the answer either. May's gift is meant to be shared. The question is how to share it on terms that keep her childhood intact." Together they made a plan. May would give occasional concerts no more than once a month. She would continue lessons with Dr. Sorokin, but only 3 times a week, with plenty of time for playgroup, the park, and simply being a child. No touring, no grueling practice schedules. School would come first when she was old enough to attend. 6 months later, May gave a charity concert in her hometown. The proceeds went to provide music education for children who couldn't afford lessons or instruments. The concert hall was filled to capacity, with people traveling from other cities just to hear the child who had taken the music world by storm. Backstage, May sat on her father's lap, looking at a picture book while waiting for her turn to perform. A volunteer came to tell them it was almost time. "Are you ready, May?" her father asked. She nodded, closing her book. As they walked toward the stage, she stopped suddenly. "Baba," she said, tugging at his hand, "can I play my own song tonight?" "After the Beethoven?" He looked down at her in surprise. "Your own song? You mean the one you made up in Vienna?" "No, a new one," May said. "I've been working on it with Grandma Lou. It's a song about colors." Her father felt a lump form in his throat. Even after everything, the competition, the gold medal, the newspapers and interviews, May was still creating, still finding her own voice in music. "Of course you can play your song," he told her. When May walked onto the stage that night, she needed no introduction. The audience greeted her with warm applause, many having followed her story since Vienna. She bowed and took her place at the piano. First she played Fur Elise in the piece that had brought her into the spotlight. Then, after the applause,